Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thank you for rejoining me with my Shattered Isle solo campaign. We rejoin the adventurers in their journey to Calath. They are venturing across the wild moorlands of, well, the name in Pictish is Moorland, the Moor of Stones. This is a desolate, windswept moorland, full of boggy ridges and scattered standing stones. Desolation everywhere. Quite a formidable obstacle for our characters to negotiate. We will need all our skill, abilities and wit to navigate. We'd already progressed the first stage of our journey, and this is where I introduced my kind of abstract terrain method, where we could navigate our journey, and I could inject some terrain variety and almost in a kind of, as I said, in a kind of abstract way, map our characters' progress. But to have enough almost detail and interaction with our environment that we actually felt we were actually progressing through this landscape, and I could weave in some of the nuances of Pictish mythology, Pictish culture, and also the Pictish environment that you would find yourself in, and hopefully that comes out in this mechanic that I'm using. I have a number of tables that I need to deploy to support this. I've only shown you a fraction of these. I intend to see if I can give you insight into more, and you could become even more immersed in the setting. There was one thing that I didn't do properly when I was looking at the footage from last time, was that I should have rolled an event dice, because remember, we have these three dice that I always employ as we cross this terrain. I use my let's say the success die, the experience die and the event die, and I should have used my event die. And what events do is they can either trigger an encounter, or they can trigger what's called an omen, or they can trigger some other happening, or they could trigger nothing. They are your options. And what I can do with them is I can triangulate them in each of these zones, and that will be activated. We'll roll randomly for what happens as an event whenever we get into that zone. I didn't actually do that last time. I have plenty of opportunities in this game to do that, so that is what I'm going to do. Okay, so in terms of where we are, we had in scene one, and the way I had framed it was that we have a number of scenes, and we had determined that we were going to have 3 scenes to get through this journey to Calath. The first scene was generated on my terrain table, my major terrain table, and that was boggy moorlands. We had negotiated some hidden bog pools and quicksand. This has added about 50% onto our journey time. We negotiated it okay. We then went back into an area of moorland, got through that fine, and then we were hit with some dense heather and some bracken patches. Again, Calath took charge and managed to guide us through quite effectively. She really shone in that occasion, providing quite firm leadership and also a sense of direction. We were always supported by Necht with her ability, an almost amazing ability to sense what the weather changes were going to be, and she sensed that the weather would not encumber us with anything else untoward, so we managed to get through the journey quite effectively. And then the last phase, which was again into moorland, I adjudicated that that was no problem. So we've really taken our first hour, and I would say, because we've added on, say, about 50% on there, we are now up to, say, 5:15. And this sounds very modern, 5:15, but I suppose in the Pictish mind, this would be like just late afternoon. We don't actually have to, we know what the time is, but they just have a general sense of how many hours until nightfall, until sun comes down, if there is a sun. We also generated boon, because we had, when we were in this terrain here, we had sighted a stag, and that was deemed to be a good omen. So we can take a positive, and I'll keep that noted. I've got the boon of stag sighting, and I'll take that into the next scene, and probably the next scene after that if it's not utilized. And I will deem that they will get a positive modifier on any die rolls that I think are applicable. Okay, and also I thought what would be quite nice, because remember with Necht, I had left this a bit open, the otherworld ancestor spirit, Urad of the Iron Ford. I thought, well, why not we use this last phase where they are tramping through this moorland here and approaching the next terrain scene, for her to relate what is the story of her ancestor spirit, Urad, and we can have a little bit of a game, the same kind of way that we did with Garnet, with his the drowning group. And that was quite exciting to find out what is the origin of Urad of the Iron Ford. Why is he an ancestor spirit for Necht? So I've devised a little table just to satisfy this demand, and I will just get to it here. And that's all my other notes. Yes, why Urad of the Iron Ford walks beside you. That is what it's entitled. And the way I'm going to frame it is I'm going to have Necht basically telling this story as the characters negotiate the last phase. But before we do that, we actually have to determine what is the reason Urad of the Iron Ford, this long dead ancestor, why his spirit is with Necht. And we've got 3 options that I can choose between, and I am going to do that randomly. But just before, to give you a heads up, a bit the same kind of story that we did for Garnet, I'm going to go through each of these. And the first one would be the blood oath fulfilled. Urad was a famed warrior who held the ford against a host until he was cut down. Your kin swore that his name would never be forgotten, and in return, he swore to guard his bloodline in times of peril. You carry his spear, or a shard of his armor, which anchors him to you. So that is basically your talisman, and that's what keeps the spirit with you. And further down the line, I'm saying there might be a hook of the ford may still be haunted. Enemies might remember his deeds, or kin may test whether you are worthy of his favor. So we could maybe take that forward as a bit of an adventure thread into future adventures. But that would give you the gist of why this Urad is with Necht. The second one is called Unfinished Vengeance. And what I'm saying was Urad was betrayed in life, slain not by his foes, but by false allies. His spirit lingers because vengeance was never completed. He urges you towards honor, but at times whispers of his thirst for blood. And the hook for this would be his killer's line may yet live, or he may demand that you avenge betrayals you encounter. So you will recall that when we were looking at Necht's motivation, there was one called Avenge a Wrong. So is she entwined with this spirit, Urad, because of the need to avenge his wrong? Or is this something separate, that she just needs to avenge another wrong. Let us find out. And then the final one, we've got chosen by the host. On a storm-racked night, you dreamed of the wild host, and Urad rode at their head, his eyes like coals. He stepped out from the host and bound himself to you, a sign that your fate is great and perilous. Ooh, that sounds a bit more supernatural. That one is almost as if he's come out of your ancestral memories and has decided, right, I'm gonna attach myself to this mortal. And then the hook, others may fear you as marked by the other world, so you might have some sort of sign on you. Maybe this is to do with some form of tattoo or mark, or you bear a scar across your eye. Maybe that is the mark of Urad. That could be something that people go, oh, with dread. Omens may cluster around you, and Urad may one day call you to ride with the host. So this, you have got an overall motivation, which might not be quite on this mortal plane, and it's veering off sideways into some sort of spectacular end point. But we were going to leave it to the bone dice. We're going to leave it to the bone dice of the Shattered Isle. And we're going to determine which one of these is next ancestor spirit's backstory. So let's find out with a D3 determination. Is it going to be 1, 2, or 3? Let's find out. We are chosen by the host. So poor Necht, poor Necht has been chosen. So as we progress through the final stages of this moorland, this desolate boggy moorland section, she explains to the other characters. She says, "On Stormrach night I dreamt of the wild host, and Urad rode at the head, his eyes like coals. He stepped out from the host and bound himself to me, a sign that my fate is great and perilous." Oh, and everyone's shaking, especially Garnet says, "That's enough to rival my story." You're taking away my thunder. We were wondering what that mark was across your eye. It really was quite frightening. So we're all getting all our stories. Maybe as a kind of fitting threesome, we should involve Kayla in having an equally impressive story. But I think that's probably enough for us to be getting on with. And what I can do is I can jot all that down, and I can keep that for future reference, and hopefully deploy it as and when we get into some form of supernatural encounter. Urad can be called upon. He is there for Necht at certain points. We can summon him once an adventure. Are we going to need him? He sounds dreadful. He sounds with the wild host, but there you go. Okay. The other thing I wanted to do just before we get kicking off was introduce, just to give you an idea of what this afterlife was. And I was doing a wee bit of research about the Pictish afterlife, just to give a bit of colour. And with the afterlife, the Picts did not dream of a golden hole, because remember we had that question about Valhalla and whether they had an equivalent. And I went away to try to research that and see exactly what their beliefs were. And I found out that the Picts did not dream of a golden hole in the sky like the Norse, but of an other world that lay just beyond the mists. To them, the cairns and standing stones were not only monuments, but gates where the ancestors gathered, feasting in shadowy holes beneath the earth. Some said the dead were ferried westward across the sea to a green and fertile island, the Isle of the Blessed, where time moved strangely and life was unending. Others whispered that the bravest warriors were chosen by the horned hunter to join his eternal chase through storm and forest, riding as a wild host across the sky. And if you will recall that is quite similar to what Necht's ancestor spirit was involved in with the horn hunter, who is like a deity in the Pictish mythology. In this belief, death was not an end, but a passage into a realm where feasting, hunting, and kinship endured. The living could sometimes glimpse it in dreams or hear its echoes in the wind that swept the moors. To a Pictish warrior, the question was never if there was a life after death, but rather which path their spirit would take when their blood fell to the soil. Okay, so that is basically their belief system. And we're going to have a fitting summary from Breanainn MacDonald. He is going to do to wrap it up and summarize in Breanainn style. He says, "The Picts do not speak of a golden hole in the sky, but of mounds where ancestors whisper, of misty isles where the dead feast, and of a horned hunter who calls the bold to ride forever. When your blade bites and your blood spills on the earth, ask yourself, will you rest among the cairns, sail west to the Green Isles, or take up the endless hunt?" And one final thing with Breanainn is that I have decided to just bring him into the overall adventure. And again, I thought, well, with a bit more colour as we progress through, why not get Breanainn involved in giving us a bit of guidance? And I've got Breanainn MacDonald's Chronicle of the Western Gael, a moorland anecdotes. And whenever I feel the need, I am going to roll a d6, and we are going to get a random little anecdote from Breanainn. I'm quite looking forward to bringing that in. And one final thing, I know I'm labouring some of these points, but there was a question from one of my viewers, and he said, "Well, I don't quite understand how this is all going to come together. Why have you done all these roles like might and cunning, and you got numbers for it? If you've got such an abstract system, I can't see any mechanics." Well, I've never really had a chance to show you anything happening. Basically not much happened in the last episode. It really was just me starting to showcase some of my my system, but I do have some very, very basic support mechanisms which use these attributes, and one of them is ability tests, and I can use these to basically roll a 1d6 for success. So anytime a character attempts something uncertain or demanding, we can frame it as an ability test, and I will get a modifier, a positive or negative modifier, depending on the attribute that I'm talking about that's most relevant. And also I can subtract further modifiers depending on the perceived difficulty. And then we have a kind of result scale, and I can say failure, partial success, or full success. Also, I can have skill tests, and these are resolved using a D12 roll. So we'll get a D12 out for that, and you'll realize that the attribute goes up to 10. So if I roll my attribute or less on this, I succeed. So needing to achieve the relevant attribute score or less to be successful in a specific task or demonstration of a relevant role skill or core knowledge. And I'm thinking this is much more to do with our kind of role and the implicit skills that we have in our, like with the Sea Raider, Gardner knows all about how to kind of, navigate a boat, sail a boat, what you should do on the water, that type of thing, and he can apply his attributes to that. And then we can add or subtract modifiers depending on the perceived difficulty of that particular skill test. And then probably the thing you're probably thinking, well, how can you do combat? I have, for combat situations, I have a system. I'm not really going to go into too much detail just now, because I'd rather show you as when we actually get into a situation where we need to have basically a hostile confrontation. But just to give you an overview, I'm saying that I can frame a situation and just assess what the tactical situation is. We can do a standard initiative roll where we can work out who goes first, and then I get everybody to declare their actions. and use whatever attributes are most applicable. I'll roll 3 dice every time, which is very similar to what I'm doing with this process, which is our success die, our experience die, and our event die. And what's going to do, what the success die is probably the most important one, because that's going to say whether we're going to hit someone or score damage or miss. The experience die is going to be how we actually feel about it. Is there, it's say something that happens as we do it, which almost either tarnishes the effect or makes it quite heroic, and it looks quite spectacular. And remember, all this kind of showishness stuff is very important in picture society, so that's why I'm emphasizing that. And then an event die, so that we might have a little bit of a slip, or you know, you maybe lose your weapon, that type of thing, and I can bring that in as well. And I'll narrate the outcome. We'll work out what the damage is. PCs actually lose health, and when they get down to a certain level of 0, I can roll to see whether they depart this world, or you know, or do they survive, but they are incapacitated. And I have a few twists and whatever, but I'm not going to go into that detail yet. I'm going to crack on with this episode. So let's get back to what we need to do, which is basically generate the next scene. So that's what I'm going to do with this. So let's get rid of this scene and move on to our next scene, and we will call it scene 2. And the first thing we do is determine what major terrain feature we are going to be crossing now. So having coming out of the boggy moorlands and having this quite entertaining story from Necht about her ancestor spirit, and all the others feeling rather quite in awe of this, because it's turned out to be quite an extreme one. We can get a nice little, I think it's time for a little anecdote from Breanainn. We can roll a d6 on his little table and just see exactly what he's got to say. So Breanainn's moorland anecdote, as we go into the next session, the next scene 4. The Horned Hunter, well, that's quite appropriate. He says, on stormy nights, some swear they hear horns echoing across the moors. Those who follow the sounds may glimpse the Horned Hunter himself, riding the spectral host. To meet him is both a blessing and a curse. So this is talking about the Horned Hunter. And the way this would probably be projected with the characters would be that Breanainn has been a notable bard back in their homeland. He has filled them full of stories, and what they do is they almost regale what Breanainn has told them at certain times, because these individuals will be talking away to each other in a bit of banter and kind of individual stories, and they will recall it in Breanainn's inimical style, and will regale these little stories. And that's probably the way you should think of any of Breanainn's interventions. It's as they remembered Breanainn was telling them, and not the fact that he is sitting there walking along beside them. You know, that's yeah, I was going to say that would be silly, but you know, in a fantasy thing, you know, it's not exactly a tenable line of argument. So we've had our little interjection from Breanainn. He has alluded to the fact that there is this Horned Hunter, and if we should encounter him, woe betide us. But to the matter at hand, we need to look at our checklist. And the first thing it says is roll on the major terrain table and see if there's any of the 5W1H points that might be impacted by this. Well, let us see what terrain that we get. So here's our major terrain table. We'll get our D6 out and find out whether it changes. Oh, so we have more boggy moorlands. All right, which is, you know, that can happen. The other things that we might have would be a ridgeline, a standing stone circle or monument, a stream in a copse, edge of a forest, foreboding copse, or a rocky outcrop scree. Now with standing stone, circle and monument, that is going to be something that's probably going to be embedded within our matrix. So if I had that, I would probably embed it in there somewhere as a feature, but seeing we haven't got that, we're going to have a succession of boggy moorland sections. And again, what I'm going to do is just follow the same format as I did last time. I will do scene 2, and it's boggy moorlands. And the narrative hooks, which I will probably deploy this time because we're a bit more familiar with the situation, and I feel that I can bring in some of these things. So extensive peat bogs in this. We are going to have a sinking risk. So say we didn't get a very good success die roll, I might have a bit of a sinking risk coming in, and we might get into all sorts of problems. The pools, spirits, there are spirits haunting these pools, and the enigmatic, tantalizing prospect of hidden relics. What could be hiding in this section of the marsh? And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my table so that I can do a nice map, and that's going to divide into 4 sections. And someone did ask whether I was inspired by Traveller. Remember, the Traveller has a kind of combat matrix, which sort of is an abstraction of distance. And I suppose at the back of my mind, that must have been a factor in it. I just wanted a kind of mechanism that I could use to almost like track progress. And I like the idea of being able to generate some terrain and place it randomly in there, and the characters would have to negotiate it. And by drawing on a map, you had a very visible way of seeing how that would happen. So what do we do next? Well, I will tell you. We are going to, for each scene, roll for sub-features, and we will get our sub-feature die, which is our D4, and we do roll D4 -1 for sub-features. So are we going to get any? We get the maximum. We're going to have 3 sub-features. So let's look at features, and I say features times 3. Our first one, our second one, and our third one. So draw these features on the minimap, and also place any relevant major features. So there are no major features that we have to place. So say there were standing stones, we could have placed them in one of these, but we don't have anything like that. But we will have these mini features, or not really mini features, but minor features. I will get to my sub features table, which is a D12, and we can roll that 3 times. So going to be quite a rich area for sub features. And if I get the same again, I'm going to just have it. But let's see what we get first. So 6. All right. So number 6 is remnants of a camp, abandoned belongings, hints of human or Pictish presence, story or treasure hook. All right. Okay. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Remnants of a camp. And again, we could use our oracle just to determine if it's going to be both. It could just be abandoned belongings, or it could just be remnants of a camp. There might not be any belongings, but if it's both, it might be maybe a bit more of a recent camp. It's got, let's say they've left hastily. What is the reason for that? Also, I've got a treasure hook as well, so that's quite interesting. We might be able to develop that. The very word treasure. So I will keep a little asterisk there for treasure as being something to bear in mind. What we're going to have as our next one. So we'll roll D12. We get a 9 this time, and a 9 is a rocky outcrop, scree slope. Natural obstacle, good for scouting, risk of falling. Okay. So, rocky outcrop, and scree slope. And again, we will recall what the potential obstacles are when we actually come to that specific subterranean feature. And our final one that we can use to generate, that is 2 windswept ridge rocks. Okay, so there's a windswept ridge with rocks, exposed elevation, danger of slips, great vantage point, scouting opportunity. Okay, so it's basically a ridge with these enormous rocks on it. That's quite that's quite an intimidating sight. This is a bit of a wild area, windswept ridge rocks. Okay, so let's find out where these things are. So let's place our remnants of a camp, abandoned belongings. That's going to be in here. So we're going to have 1 here. So we're probably going to have, well, I won't draw it yet. So I'll wait to see what my oracle says about that. Rocky outcrop and scree slope is going to be in 2. So we're going to have a rocky outcrop. And a scree slope, which we have to negotiate, and that's in section 2. And our final one that we can do is that's in section 4 again. So maybe the abandoned camp, the remnant of the camp, is on a windswept ridge rock. So these rocks on a ridge, great big boulders lying around. So this is, you can imagine, it's almost like a big long ridge that we have to cross. It is the camp. The camp has to be, isn't it? It has to be on that. I would say yes, let's put the camp. First thing I want to do is just maybe ask the oracle, is it remnants of a camp and abandoned belongings? So I will phrase my question to the oracle and get my oracle out, so that I know exactly what my answer should be. And I will ask, is there both remnants of a camp and abandoned belongings? And if it's a yes, there is. So let's roll the dice. And it's a 4, it's unclear. Freely, interpret freely, roll additional. So I'm just going to say that yes, I am going to go for that. I'm going to say there are abandoned belongings. So there might be some items. And remember, there was hidden relics as being potential. So maybe this, or is this a trap? You know, this camp, you know, maybe to lure us in. So there's going to be a remnant of a camp. I'll just put little circles here just now, just to denote that. And of course, as we progress across this territory, we will have to be able to see whether we actually discover it. Is it obvious? Is it going to be in our path? Let's find out. Okay, what else are we going to do? Maybe I should ask the oracle again with the scree slope. So is there a scree slope as well as a rocky outcrop? And it says yes, so emphatically yes, so there will be a scree slope, maybe on the other side. So this rocky outcrop and then a scree slope behind it going down. So this is pretty rough terrain for us to get across. you know, the fact that it's, you know, these white areas, these are boggy, you know, these are boggy moorlands. You know, there's all sorts of things, you know, the peat bogs and whatever. Maybe these are a bit firmer ground, but they are quite treacherous. You know, this ridge, the fact that we're out of the bogs, but we are faced by these enormous boulders, and you know, this rocky outcrop with a scree slope we could slip on, and have all sorts of problems. What is next on our checklist, just to kind of complete the scene? We've drawn the features on the mini-map. Each of these scenes represent 1 hour's travel. So again, we get our little timer up. It's 5:15. It's going to take us an hour to get across. So you can imagine each of these is about a quarter, 15 minutes. And you know, as we progress, we'll roll on the weather table if triggered with a 4 to 6 roll. So let's find out whether weather is triggered this time. And the prevailing conditions are, it's just stormy clouds and a very strong wind. But yes, the weather table is triggered in this case. So we are going to have weather. And Necht, with her abilities, is probably going to be able to anticipate this and say, you know, what preventative methods we can take as it approaches. But let's find out exactly what type of weather we're talking about. And I will make sure I get to my weather table. We roll a d6 on our weather table and find out what is the unpleasant conditions that are going to face us. We get a 5, and it's a bright, cold sun. All right, so maybe the clouds part. The sun comes through. It is cold, it's bright. So there's good visibility, travel easier, landmarks visible, morale boosted. Yes. So Necht says, I see, look into the sky. I can see the clouds part in my mind's eye. And as they watch, they can see the storm clouds briefly part, and this pale winter sun, bright and cold, shines through. Suddenly the visibility over the moorland increases. They can see further. They feel that they can travel easier. It's going to be easier for them to gauge where their footing is. And they say, oh, I can see this. I can see it before me. I can see a rocky outcrop. I cannot see the scree slope behind it. Who knows? And in the far distance, there is a ridge with great tooth-like rocks on it. My goodness. So it is all becoming visible to us, very clear. And that's all just down to a simple weather roll. So I am going to put bright, cold sun, and that's going to inform my approach to the overall section, the scene. And probably quite importantly, that our morale is boosted. We feel a bit more lifted. The fact that the sun is in the sky. We still feel in touch with the daylight. It is still there. We have not been thrown into the depths of night. So that was a very effective use of the weather, and the next, doing her a bit of meteorological analysis, did manage to provide a quick forecast and summary. We're also going to roll for a setting features check on a 6 and then consult that table. So this, if we roll a 6 on this, I can do my setting feature. So let's see what we get. So no, we're not going to have a setting feature. And then we really get stuck into the actual progress. But I do see the time. I am trying to keep all these episodes to 30 minutes or less. That is the idea. I am going to leave this until the next episode. We are going to get across this and get straight into the next scene. By that time, we will have completed the journey to Dun Calath, and then we can actually see how we negotiate a settlement as a different place. But in the meantime, we do have the tantalizing prospect of trying to get across this rocky outcrop. You know, that's not going to be easy. I can use in fact, what I'll do is I will locate when we are going to trigger our event with a 1d4. We are going to get it in section 2. So I have got event, check. So when we get to there, that could be quite exciting, what's going to happen. As we approach the rocky outcrop, maybe something will push us from behind down the scree slope and we will take a tumble, or will there be an ambush, you know, someone hiding in the rocky outcrop, or maybe some malign spirit waiting for us to trigger some other terrible thing. Who knows? The only thing we have in our favor is this bright sun, so potentially any malevolent force that is lurking might be shown in advance. You know, our visibility is improved, but we will have to wait and see. Okay, right. I enjoyed that. Hopefully you found that interesting as well. You found out a few things about the Pictish afterlife. We managed to get a bit of a backstory to Necht's ancestor spirit. The fact that Breanainn is going to be interjecting with his few of his tales as we progress through this to brighten things up. I am hoping that you're getting a much more of a feeling of immersion in this setting. I think if we actually start doing a bit of a detailed adventuring as we progress through here, it can only, maybe a lot of things will actually connect, and you'll see how everything is starting to interplay. And as I said, I think in my last episode, I'm still getting used to actually using the system as I do, you know, present it in a YouTube fashion. So you know, I'm getting better, hopefully, at actually trying to narrate it and make it more sensible and hopefully more entertaining, so that you don't feel it's too stilted and too disjointed. You know, almost like I want it to almost be a free flow of narrative that's really just coming spontaneously out of the die rolls. That's my aim, to get to that place where it seems very natural and you're just watching a story unfold. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next episode.